This month in punk rock history, Generation X fired their founding drummer. Let's start in the middle, jump back to the beginning, and power through to the end. This is Generation X in about 5 minutes or less. As I said, founding member John Toe was fired from Generation X in mid-April '77. Some sources say this happened in May, others say June. Regardless, the band had only been together for about 5 months and had developed a significant fan base in London, with the legendary Roxy serving as their home base. Toe's final gig with Generation X was a recording session for the John Peel Show. His first gig with the band was with a different band. It all started in fall of '76. Malcolm McLaren's chief retail competitor, Acme Attractions, put out a call in Melody Maker for musicians to form a new band centered around the store regular Gene October. They quickly recruited drummer John Toe. Guitarist William Broad was next to be hired, and he brought his friend, bassist Tony James, from the London SS. This Acme-based band became the first incarnation of Chelsea. Upon completion of the band's third ever gig, the crowd called for an encore, but Chelsea was out of material. They retook the stage. Broad pushed October to the side and took lead on Prove It, a song written by Broad and James. Shortly after that, the band left their singer with nothing but a mic and the name Chelsea. They reformed within a month, rhythm section intact. Broad, who now called himself Billy Idol, took over on vocals, and new recruit Bob Durwood Andrews was on guitar. They called themselves Generation X after a book found at Billy's mom's house. This original lineup played all over London, occasionally ventured into the English countryside, and at least once hit Europe. This brings us to John's parting from the band. In his autobiography, Billy says they had become dissatisfied with John's drumming, or, quote, maybe it was his curly hair. Legend has it Generation X auditioned around 50 drummers before settling on 18-year-old Mark Laff, formerly of Subway Sect, who made his Generation X debut in the middle of June '77. With Laff pounding the drums into submission, the band recorded a few demo tracks and shopped the white label around to various outlets, attracting record offers. On July 20th, 1977, Generation X signed to independent label Chrysalis Records for a £1 million advance on 3 LPs. The band quickly went to work and by September released their first single, Your Generation, which eventually peaked at number 36. Continuing on, they made a few TV appearances and played a few gigs before heading back to the studio to record the second single, Wild Youth. It was in this session that the seed was planted for a Billy Idol solo career. In his memoir, Idol says his loyalty to the band and to the experiment that was punk rock kept him in the band. Meanwhile, he was the label-appointed solo envoy representing the band to the press. Idol was sent on a solo press tour of the USA, where he rubbed elbows with American punk icons Blondie, Patti Smith, The Germs, The Offs, and The Cramps. He sat in with Rodney on the Rock and had his picture taken by Roberta Bailey, who also photographed the Ramones for their first album cover. Then it was back to the UK to work on album number 2. Produced by Mott the Hoople's Ian Hunter, Valley of the Dolls was a broader rock sound rather than straight-ahead punk, signaling maturity in the band's writing. This widened the fan base but pushed out the core punk fandom. This also brought the bands to the glossy covers of teeny bopper magazines, making them punk rock pinups. James began to suffer from anxiety and shied away from the press, leaving Idol to fill the void, once more acting as band spokesman. Around this time, Laff and Andrews wanted to flex their creative muscles, but songwriting attempts were shut down by James and Idol. Tensions were running high as the band was about to embark on another tour. Manager Stuart Joseph was accused of stirring up trouble within the band and was fired. When asked who they would want as a replacement, James half-jokingly said, "Whoever manages Kiss," while Chrysalis immediately telephoned Bill Aucoin, who would eventually follow Idol on his solo career. Just before the tour started, Andrews announced he was leaving the band. He would stay on to fulfill the tour obligations and to record the third album, but that was it. While the second album was technically successful, it wasn't successful enough, and the stakes were high. This was the band's make-or-break moment. After a hometown warm-up gig, Generation X set off for a 3-night tour of Japan, and then immediately back to the studio to work on the third album. This was about the time that Idol had discovered heroin, and James's anxiety had worsened. Recording wrapped, and as threatened, Andrews quit. Laff followed suit soon after. Idol and James soldiered on, however, and continued their songwriting partnership. They recruited Clash founder Terry Chimes on drums and brought in an all-star cast of punk guitarists, including Steve Jones and Danny Kustow, to retool some existing recordings, calling themselves Gen X. Chrysalis was ready to abandon the project altogether, but Idol put himself up as collateral, promising a successful solo career if the album flopped. Well, guess what happened. That was it for Gen X. Original drummer John Tell re-emerged with the short-lived band The Rage before joining the Adverts and later Alternative TV. Bob Durwood Andrews and Mark Laff went on to form Empire. Tony James founded Sigway Sputnik, and Billy Idol just kind of faded into obscurity.
So see the music you want to see!
I want my MTV. Alright. Yeah, too much is never enough.
So that's it. That was Generation X in about 5 minutes. For this month in punk rock history, this has been Brendan McCabe. Tune in next month when I'll talk about violence.
Greetings, gentle viewers. It is I, Sweet Jimmy Cook. Thanks for listening to This Month in Punk Rock History. As an added bonus, here are some selected tracks from today's featured band. Be sure to check them out, and if this is your first time here, please like and subscribe. I'm Sweet Jimmy Cook. Good luck.